On Wednesday, Venezuela's president, Nicolás Maduro, fired back at two of his main international critics, rebuking Spanish Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy for meddling, while also mocking U.S. President Donald Trump for his geographical ignorance. As international pressure increases on Maduro over alleged human rights violations, the United States has recently imposed sanctions on Venezuelan officials, while Spain has pressed the European Union to follow suit. After mocking Rajoy for mispronouncing his name, Maduro claimed that the conservative leader should rather focus on Spain's internal problems, Catalonia's independence push, and Europe's problematic relations with Washington. The Venezuelan leader went on to say of Trump, who has been widely ridiculed for making reference last week to a non-existent African country, Donald Trump doesn't even know where Venezuela is. Give him a map, and he can't find Venezuela.
Just over 1 week since central Mexico was rocked by a deadly earthquake, and rescuers have admitted they're unlikely to find any more survivors. An estimated 400 people died in the 7.1 quake, which damaged over 11,000 homes and led to an outpouring of civilian volunteers to help victims and grieving relatives. President Enrique Peña Nieto has vowed to keep up the search for those still missing. We will continue with search and rescue operations, he said, and where possible we will start reconstruction. In those states which were hit, we will directly support families with resources to repair damage or for the construction of a new home. So far this month, Mexico has battled hurricanes, tropical storms and 2 earthquakes. The series of natural disasters has quickly turned political, with politicians passing blame for collapsed buildings, aware of elections looming next year. Puerto Rico is struggling with fuel, water and medical supply shortages 1 week after Hurricane Maria struck. The most powerful storm to hit the island in nearly 90 years knocked out the U.S. territory's entire power grid, leaving its 3.4 million residents having to queue for dwindling gasoline and diesel supplies. The storm, which claimed the lives of more than 30 people across the Caribbean, left widespread destruction in its wake. Even as the U.S. military stepped up relief efforts, there's frustration with the Trump administration and its slowness to waiver shipping restrictions to allow in more emergency deliveries. In the meantime, desperate residents have to wait hours for fresh water supplies from lorries which have often been mobbed.
There are claims of Franco-era repression after the Spanish government stationed police at voting booths here in Catalonia to help thwart the region's planned independence referendum this weekend. The Catalan regional government, which plans to declare independence within 48 hours of a yes victory, maintains the vote will go ahead. The president of this school says all school directors have been warned about the charges they face if they facilitate or take part in the vote.
Los delitos en los que pueden recaer si facilitan, fomentan o colaboran en un acto tan delictivo como votar, ¿no?
Experts say a yes vote is likely, given that most of the 40% of Catalans who polls show support independence are expected to cast ballots. I'm in favour of the vote, she says, but it would be best to hold it in the usual context of debates and information, giving the arguments for and against independence. Some teachers say they're against voting, but we're a democracy in Catalonia, and it's to be expected there will be differing opinions.
Es normal que haya diferentes opiniones.
Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy says the referendum's against the law and the Constitutional Court has ordered it be halted while the legality is determined. 4 days before the referendum considered illegal by the authorities, the tension is growing, says our correspondent. Around 6,000 police officers have been mobilized to stop the polls from opening on October the 1st.
French President Emmanuel Macron and Italian Premier Paolo Gentiloni have pulled off a diplomatic coup at their one-day summit in Lyon. They ended a damaging dispute over a naval shipyard in the west of France that had been souring bilateral ties. On the back of it, a study group has been set up to look into the creation of a so-called joint European champion in military shipbuilding. Our reporter in Lyon said trade talks appear to have sparked discussions over the future of the European Union. Indeed, it was clear at their joint press conference. Putting trade deals aside, Prime Minister Gentiloni made reference to the growing calls for modernising the EU, with the damaging impact of an international economic crisis waning, with a destructive form of populism being stopped at the ballot box in several countries. Now is the time to look at ambitious ideas for reform, he said. The moment might not come again. For his part, President Macron said the roadmap that this summit has sought to create contains concrete elements of a forward-looking nature to cultivate more cooperation within Europe, which I think is a good method. The Lyon summit comes after Tuesday's keynote speech by President Macron, in which he'd offered a sweeping vision of EU reform.
Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has dissolved Japan's House of Representatives. It followed his calling a snap general election in a bid to maintain his hold on power. Abe set October the 22nd as the day of the vote at an extraordinary session, without making a policy speech and with no press conference afterwards. The timing of the election, official campaigning for which will start on October the 10th, suggests the Premier's primary goal is to take advantage of the perceived weakness and lack of preparation in the opposition parties. However, they have rallied together in a major reorganisation aimed at taking power. The main opposition Democratic Party has put a plan to party executives that will effectively see it merge with the charismatic former mayor of Tokyo's brand new Kibo No party to mount a united challenge.
Russia is destroying its last supplies of chemical weapons, 3 years ahead of schedule, Vladimir Putin says. The Russian president hailed the move as historic, but criticised the US for allegedly not keeping its side of the bargain. He said Washington has postponed destroying its chemical weapons 3 times already, citing financial constraints.
Televidente com a notícia internacional, nosso próximo espaço comercial, ora nosso back e deporte CBA.